Hello and welcome back to the channel. First of all, I'd like to thank Sister Monica for sharing this story with me. This story comes as no big surprise because we've seen and heard throughout history that certain things have happened to our people, to so-called black people in this country, and they continue to go unrepentant. This story kind of reminds me of Lake Lanier. I talked about that earlier this year, a few months back, where there is a whole town, a whole black town that was that's literally underwater. They took over the land, and they didn't even care about the existence of the homes and the structures that were built by these black people, landmarks and things, churches. They didn't care. They wanted that lake for entertainment purposes or recreational purposes for their white residents, and so they took over that land. Legacy buried underwater, and that's what it was, and it was just that cold, and we continue to see these things happen. So this story doesn't come as a surprise at all either. Apparently there are more than 1,000 black bodies. It says that up to 1,000 remains, including those of enslaved Africans, lie beneath a Staten Island parking lot, to the shock of local residents. A lot of people are shocked by it. They're like, oh my goodness, this place that we are walking on top of has the bodies or the remains of dead black people. So anyway, I'm going to let you hear some of the details of this very, very sad story, and I will be right back.
According to historians, the lot is the location of the only black burial ground on the Long Island North Shore from the 1850s to the early 20th century, and is the final resting place for generations of black people, a fact that is not hidden, but one that many locals are still surprised to learn. This was specifically for African American people. Some were slaves, some were the descendant of the enslaved, some were family, some were African American residents who never knew slavery, historian Patricia Salmon told NBC New York. The Second Asbury African Methodist Episcopal Church and Cemetery were originally built on the land in the mid-1800s before the cemetery lands were deeded over to the African Methodist Church Cemetery of Staten Island organization by the Second African Methodist Episcopal Church of Staten Island in 1929. The city of Staten Island took possession of the cemetery, which was missing headstones since as early as 1913, in 1950 due to $11,768 owed in back taxes. It was sold in 1953 to Sidel Mann of the Bronx, and the land, as well as its history, has continually been developed over since the 1980s. The development was protested by the Friends of Abandoned Cemeteries of Staten Island, FACSI. However, the developer maintained that there were no human remains found at the location. The city of New York also denied the existence of a legal cemetery, although several documents including death certificates, burial records, and property maps exist proving that legal or otherwise, a cemetery existed on the property. The last known man born into slavery on Staten Island, Benjamin Perrine, is one of the great numbers of those whose remains have been paved over in the lot, and his great-great-great-grandchildren siblings Ruth and Hills and David Thomas, who still live in the area, are heartbroken to know so many have been forgotten. "It breaks my heart. It's personal to me," Hills said to the station. "Yes, it is, and I think it should be recognized that there are people that are there, my family members." With historians, activist organizations, and documentarians shedding more light on the burial ground's existence, efforts are growing to preserve its legacy. It's about knowledge that that place is there, knowledge that that place exists, and knowledge that those people that's there have value, said Robert Perkins, the first black man to become district leader of the Staten Island North Shore, who is working to put the cemetery back on the map. "The truth of the matter, it needs to be spoken about and something need to be done about it," Perkins told the NBC affiliate. "We're walking around eyes wide shut, and it's right there. It just makes me think. It makes me shudder to think, but also excited to wonder what else is buried out here."
Okay, when you listen to the details of this horrendous story. I mean, it sounds horrible to think that people have no problem treating other people in this way. But this has been the story of this country, and it's very sad and unfortunate that they are trying to wipe that out of the pages of history. And so the next generation goes into these situations completely unprepared to receive the information that comes along with this. Or they go into situations not knowing that there is a long history of contention between black and white. Okay? There's a long history of it. And this long history causes people to blindly, and I'm just going to say more specifically, young black people to blindly enter into situations to where they could be in danger. We continue to hear stories of things that are happening to so-called black people. We continue to hear these stories where they go to a sleepover and this happens. They go on a boating trip and they don't come back alive. Or they go taking a walk down a country road and boom, something very tragic happens, because there is an attitude that exists in this country that some young people act as if no one's ever told them about, because there is a wrong perception out here. But when you understand the mind, when you understand how a group of people, and of course I'm not referring to every last person within that group, right? But when you understand how a group of people could knowingly do these kinds of things to other people, then you ask yourself very important questions. Should I stand back and observe a little more before I allow myself to get into a certain situation? We heard a documentary where they were talking about, a number of different things, right? And a lot of it wasn't even dealing with this kind of stuff, but it was talking about, the health of our bodies and our minds and things of that nature. But in the documentary, there was a white guy who actually talked about how Native Americans perceived their invaders. Now, let me say that again. This was a white guy talking about this. He was saying that the Native Americans referred to their white invaders as wetico. And it has something to do with people who were completely void of emotions when it comes to how they deal with their treatment of you, that they have no feeling about it, that their only goal, as a matter of fact, let me go to the definition. I like the way that particular white guy explained it. He explained it really good, but I'm going to just go here online and just give you a quick synopsis of it. He went into a lot of detail, okay? And again, this was a white guy explaining how the natives viewed white invaders, in which they had a right to, because this was their land and they were just taking over. They looked at it like a disease. They says there is a contagious psychospiritual disease of the soul, a parasite of the mind that is currently being acted out in mass on the world stage via a collective psychosis of titanic proportions. This mind virus, which Native Americans have called wetico, covertly operates through the unconscious blind spots in the human psyche, rendering people oblivious to their own madness and compelling them to act against their own best interests. Drawing on insights from, okay, so I'm not going to get into that part right there, but anyway, that was the definition. And this white guy said that this is what Native Americans called white people. Okay. As a matter of fact, I think I may do a separate video on this because I don't want it to get lost in the text of this video. But again, that is the reason why they can just bury over people's towns and things of that nature, but they hold their areas very, very sacred, and they want you to respect everything about them while they are disrespecting you. So anyway, I'm done with this story. I think I want to talk about wetico separately. so that I can expound more specifically on that and not just on the fact that there are over 1,000 or up to 1,000 black people buried under this parking lot, and it's like no big deal to the people who did it. So anyway, I want to know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Of course, remember to keep it tight and keep it right, but until next time. We hope you liked today's topic. Please leave your comments below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, share it, like this video, and with that, we're out. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.